Welcome everyone to our second evaluation workgroup call this year. We'll start by doing a quick roll call. We'll try to have it be a bit organized if at all possible. We'll start with kind of doing a call by year, and so if you're a 2016 grantee, please introduce yourself, state your name and the organization that you are with, and whether you actually are staff at the organization or if you're an external evaluator. And we'll kind of go through the different cohorts, and then at the end we'll leave time for others on the call who are either JBS or CNCS staff to introduce themselves. And then after that we'll move into the presentation from AARP. So do we want to start first with the 2016 cohort? Is there anyone on the line from that group?
Hi, this is Casey Sue from Red F, and I'm staff at the organization.
Hi, and this is Jen Laird from RTI. We're the external evaluators for the Red F grant.
And this is Kim McComb Thornton. I am the Research and Evaluation Director at the North Carolina Partnership for Children.
Hi, this is Claire Budenberg, and I'm with Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. I'm on staff, and we are a grantee.
Hi there, this is Trevor Feronius. I'm with WestEd, and we are serving as the external evaluator with Claire and Nebraska Children on their grant.
Are there any other 2016? Is Indiana or Friends of the Children?
Sarah Van Slambrook with United Way of Central Indiana. We are a grantee, and I am an employee.
And this is Sharon Kandris from Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, and we're working with United Way as an external grantee in partnership with someone else who's on the line.
This is Ty Partridge. I'm a professor at Wayne State University and an evaluation consultant with United Way of Southeast Michigan on their 2016 SIF.
Hi, and yes, this is Susan Walsh from Friends of the Children.
Great. Then do we want to move on to 2015?
Hello, this is Emily Apple with the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York City on staff.
Marcus Pope with Youth Prize on staff.
And this is Justin Roskoff with Search Institute, who's serving as the external evaluator for Youth Prize.
We'll move on to 2014.
Oh, sorry, I was waiting. This is Lindsay Patterson from Portland State University, an external evaluator for the United Way of Lane County.
Great, thanks. 2014 or 13, I guess.
This is Michelle Brodesky with Methodist Healthcare Ministries of South Texas. We're a 2014 grantee, and I'm on staff here. And then we have some of our external evaluators on the line, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Great. Hi, everyone. This is Lisa Wolf, and I'm here with Karen Ericetti and Becky Adigbe. We're from Health Resources in Action, and we're the external evaluator with Methodist, for Methodist.
Hi, this is Marissa Kirk-Epstein with Share Our Strengths. We're a 2014 grantee, and I'm on staff.
Hi, this is Tracy Waters. I'm with Furman University's Riley Institute, and we are the external evaluator for United Way of Greenville County.
Great, then we'll move on to 2012, 2011, 2010. Is there anyone else who has not yet introduced themselves who's on the call who would like to introduce themselves?
Yeah, hi, this is Kim Layla from Third Sector. I think we're SIF round 2, but focused on youth development here, and excited to be on the call. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, this is Brendan Brown with the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. I'm Senior Research Associate, and we are also a SIF2 Round 2 grantee.
Hi, this is Laura D'Alessandro with LISC. We're a 2010 and a 2015 grantee.
Hi, this is Brianka Merritt with the Indiana University Public Policy Institute. I'm with Sharon Kandris, introduced herself earlier as well, and we're working with the United Way of Central Indiana.
And this is Hannah Batesh from Social Policy Research Associates. We're the external evaluator for AARP Foundation's 2014 grant.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you guys for the roll call. It's really helpful for us to know what organizations are joining, as well as kind of to hear the mix of external evaluators, as well as, you know, SIF intermediary staff that's here. And I think that's very relevant for today's conversation. So the conversation today will be about, you know, encouraging collaboration between internal and external evaluators. Thank you to AARP for sharing your experiences with all of us. I'd like to introduce Jocelyn Silsby and Kathy Brennan. Jocelyn Silsby is the Senior Advisor for Monitoring and Evaluation at AARP, and she works with the 2014 SIF grant that focuses on Back to Work 50+. And Kathy Brennan is the Research and Evaluation Advisor at AARP, and she works with the 2015 SIF grant, which focuses on Experience Corps. One of the attachments to the invite today was actually a fact sheet, which provides you with a little bit more information about the two different grants that they're working on. But otherwise, I'll turn it over to Jocelyn and Kathy.
Thank you so much. We are just delighted to be here today. A couple of months ago, our SIF program officer, Katie, asked if she heard about this presentation, and we had done a very similar presentation with our evaluation partners at American Evaluation Association. And she said, you know, we think this would be right up this alley for this evaluation working group, and asked us if we'd present. So we're just really super excited to be here talking with you today. And we really hope that you will feel free to ask questions and have conversation and take the polls, because we want to make this as useful for you as possible. So really quickly, I'm sure all of you have heard of AARP, but have you heard of the AARP Foundation? So we are a group that we really work on behalf of serving vulnerable people 50+ by creating and advancing effective solutions that help them secure the essentials. So there's 5 main areas, and you can kind of see by our graphics there. We work in legal advocacy, food, housing, connections, and income. So really what we strive to do and what we do each year is we help millions of older Americans who are struggling get their basics, from nutritious food to making adequate income, to making the connections they need with others, to securing affordable housing. That's what we do. So our goals for this discussion, we really want to describe and discuss with all of you on the phone what it means to work and be an evaluation partner. And we want to identify and discuss ways to leverage the best assets of internal and external evaluators. So before we get to that, though, we really want to do a quick poll of our audience here. The first question we have on the poll is, what is your role with the SIF evaluation? Do you manage evaluation projects or contracts? Do you serve as the external evaluator working for the SIF intermediary? Or do you serve as the external evaluator working for the SIF grantee? That's our first poll question. And then I'm going to introduce our second poll question as well. Our second poll question is similar to the introductions. In what year was SIF funding awarded to you? Was it 2016, 2015, 2014, or earlier than 2014? And with that, I'm going to turn things over.
Great, so the poll has been activated and you'll see it appear on the right side. And we're just going to take a minute or so and let as many people fill that out as possible. Okay, it looks like we have almost everyone finished, just waiting on a few more. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. It's going to take a second here, and we will display those results. Okay, so the poll results should be visible now.
Great. Thank you so much. So it looks like the vast majority of folks on the phone, their role is managing the evaluation project, although we have some external evaluators as well. And then in what year were you funded? The vast majority are 2016 and 2014. So really the more recent grantees. Excellent. This gives us a good sense of our audience, and thank you very much for participating. So with that, I am going to turn the conversation over to my colleague, Jocelyn Silsby.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm just going to review for you a little bit our experience with evaluation. We are pretty new to it in terms of formal evaluation. The function was actually added to AARP Foundation in 2014, just literally about 3 or 4 months before we received our first SIF grant. And at that time, Experience Corps existed as an organization, but it was part of the larger AARP enterprise, which is about 2,000 staff, and we're in the same building. But it's, as Kathy mentioned earlier, it's a separate organization. And the foundation is only about 200 staff. So it gives you a sense as to the size, and we're a separate 501c3. We're on one floor of the building, and now Experience Corps is part of the foundation. So, you know, in terms of that, we have received 3 federal grants since 2014, 2 of them being Social Innovation Fund grants and 1 from the USDA that have rigorous evaluation requirements. And if you look at our other foundation programs, there really is a range. Some of them are literally just in development, and so we're taking more of a planning and developmental approach to evaluation. And then others are way, way further along the spectrum. There are programs like tax aid and others that have been funded for years and years and years and have lots of experience under their belt. And then we have these grants. So it's a lot of different types of program readiness for evaluation that we're dealing with right now. So what I'd like to find out next is where you all see yourselves in terms of your experience with evaluation prior to SIF. So what was your organization's level of experience with evaluation prior to SIF? It could be novice, experienced, or somewhere in between.
Okay, so once again, we're just wrapping up. It looks like we have almost everyone submitted, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. Okay, so now those poll results are visible.
Okay, so, and I'm curious as to whether external evaluators answered this question, and I'm kind of assuming you did when I look at the numbers here. So we have the majority being experienced, and we have about 5 being somewhere in between and being at the novice level. So that's very interesting. And we didn't really say who should answer, so that's just fine. I know we said, Kathy and I said we were novices. Our organization was at the novice level ahead of time. So, next slide. So in terms of our experience, I mentioned before, we have 2 SIF program grants. In 2015, Experience Corps, which has been around for about 20 years and does intergenerational literacy programs in schools. And then our 2014 grant is for Back to Work 50 Plus, the Women's Economic Stability Initiative, which is a workforce development program implemented in community colleges. And you can refer to your handout to get a little bit more information about these programs. We're not going to go into any detail really at all about what the programs are about, but definitely talk about our experience with evaluation. So what I'd like to begin with in framing our conversation is to talk about what we found to be most critical for achieving collaboration between ourselves as managers of evaluation and our external evaluation organizations. So first and foremost is to work on the evaluation and work plan together, to design it together. And we achieved this in a couple of different ways. One was to ensure, with being involved in the writing of our SIF proposals, we both put together, at least an overview of what we expected the evaluation would accomplish and what the design of that evaluation would be, just an overview. And then in developing the RFP for our evaluation partners, a little more detail, but still very much like this is what we hope to accomplish with our evaluation. So we had that up front, and then when we started working with our partners, we worked very closely together to nail that down. And then the other piece that was extremely critical is I feel that our role as the internal evaluators is to ensure that the external evaluator can do their work independently. And I want to back up for a moment and just say when we use the term internal evaluator, we're talking about both those who are conducting evaluations within their organizations and maybe doing performance monitoring, but also those who are managing external evaluations. So I just want to make sure that was clear. But an example of kind of, being that gatekeeper or ensuring the external evaluator can do their work independently, when we first started and our program staff were really just starting to get familiar with what evaluation is all about, our external evaluator was about to go on some site visits, some startup site visits to understand our sub-grantees and kind of what the issues would be with data collection there. And our program staff wanted to go with them and be there for the entire site visit. And we knew that, and I'm sure you all know, that people aren't going to be as candid talking about their programs if they know their funder is right there in the room with them. So we had to kind of draw a really clear line there and just say, no, you can't attend. It's really important, and explain why. But it was a little tricky at first. Another that I have found really important in terms of building trust is being able to talk openly with my evaluation partner about our organizational culture and roles, knowing that those conversations are very candid and transparent, but also confidential, and that I'm only talking about things that are germane to understanding the program better and understanding how our organization works better, whether that's a leadership change or structural change or something about the history of the program. And then building in time and opportunity for productive learning relationships, which sounds very obvious, but it's actually putting systems in place having regular calls with subgrantees where the external evaluator can participate and be part of those as needed, having regular phone calls with the program staff and the external evaluator and myself to ensure really strong communication, having regular meetings with our subgrantees where evaluation results are presented. Next. So I'm going to turn it over to Kathy, who's going to talk about the Experience Corps and APT partnership.
All right. And before we do this, I just want to point out one more thing on this slide. These are the keys that we have found have been important for effective collaboration. And as we go through the next slides, we want you to be thinking about what have been your keys for effective collaboration, because that'll help us foster the conversation later in the presentation. So I'm Kathy Brennan. I'm the head of evaluation for Experience Corps, and APT Associates is our evaluation partner. So in the beginning, my role was really to set the vision of the body of the evaluation work. What evaluation work did we need to have done in order to really strengthen the Experience Corps program? Also, when I came on board 3 years ago, we didn't have any evaluation funding. So one of my key roles was to secure funding for evaluation. And I realized that it may not all come at one time. It may come in dribs and drabs, and that's what happened with us. And the other thing is I knew that for the body of evaluation work that needed to be done, we really needed a strong evaluation partner. And in my experience, the thing that makes the strongest evaluation partner is someone who's really open to working collaboratively, particularly at the beginning during the planning phase, and someone who's really interested in understanding all the nuances of the program. So Jocelyn mentioned Experience Corps is a little unique to the foundation. Our program is 20 years old, and we're a program that matches older adults, 50 plus, with kids who are struggling to read in the classroom. So kids in K through 3 who are really struggling to read in the classroom. And 10 years ago, we had an RCT done on our one-on-one model, which had very positive effects for the program. Since that time, our program had really evolved, and we needed to bring on an evaluation partner to really do an implementation evaluation again, and then an impact evaluation of our model as it is today. So let me just show you the arc of our work. So when I came on board in 2013, we really were badly in need of updating our research base and setting an evaluation vision. Our program model had really moved from being purely a one-on-one model to much more of a small group model. But we didn't have a strong evidence base yet for our small group model, and we needed to build that out. In 2014, we received funding from AmeriCorps to do an implementation evaluation. Very generously, they gave us money to do this, and we made it clear to them, not only did we want to do an implementation evaluation, but we really wanted to do an impact evaluation as well, but we needed additional funding to do that. However, when we got that initial funding, we wrote an RFP that said, okay, we have enough funding at this point for an implementation evaluation, but we really want to bring on an evaluation partner who can see us through the arc of this work, which means an implementation evaluation and an impact evaluation looking at our small group models. Fortunately, and we were so thankful and excited, in 2015 we were selected as a SIF grantee, and with that SIF funding, we're able to now do our impact evaluation as well. Over the course from 2016 to 2019 are our evaluation years. We're starting off with an implementation evaluation, then an evaluability assessment, followed by an impact evaluation. So really my role as an internal evaluator as we were getting started is to share the knowledge of the program model, the program history, our internal stakeholders, and bring an understanding of the internal data collection systems and look for synergies in what we do. We provide input on the evaluation design and data collection methods, but APT really took the lead, especially with the data collection methods. We collaborate on format on all deliverables so that they work for all of our audiences, whether that be CNCS or be our EC Experience Core Network. And we communicate internally about purpose, timing, data collection results. We're constantly communicating. On app side, so when we did this for AEA, this is where my evaluation partner took over, but she can't be with us today. You know, they're really, in 2016-17, 2017-18, they're really focused on implementation support and monitoring and providing a huge amount of TA, technical assistance, along with myself on what it means to be part of an evaluation. Some of our sites are truly novices with evaluation. Others have more of a moderate level of understanding of evaluation. And you can see that in 2016-17, this school year, we're doing very small amounts of data collection. Most of what we're doing is technical assistance to the site. So we're doing EC staff surveys this year. We'll continue to ramp up in 2017 and 18, and ACT will be collecting additional survey information. Then they'll do the evaluability assessment, and in 2018 and 19 is when we're planning for our RCT. What's most interesting here, and the point that Kat from ACT Associates, our evaluation partner, made most strongly, is that the role really changes between the first 2 years and the last year. While we're very hands-on with technical assistance right now, ACT as well as myself around the evaluation, they really have to pull back in the impact evaluation year because they need to be completely independent during that year as to not influence the results of that evaluation. Now I'm turning it back over to Jocelyn.
Great. So I'll talk a little bit about Back to Work 50+ and how our partnership started with Social Policy Research Associates. And as opposed to Experience Corps, Back to Work 50+ is a much newer program that's been in place about 5 years at this point. And for the current SIF project, we're working with community colleges as our sub-grantees to focus on low-income women aged 50 to 64 to help them get college training and skill building to deal with the challenges of the digital age. So we got our SIF grant in September of 2014, and by January we had a contract in place with SPR. And this is a small research firm located in Northern California that has deep expertise in the needs of older adult workers, workforce development and community college settings, and of course rigorous evaluation. But as I mentioned before, you know, the work on the actual evaluation design was extremely important. And what we did was, or what they did is when we first had our set of sub-grantees on board and we were doing an orientation meeting, they came in person. They presented to the grantees about, you know, what this evaluation was all about, what is an implementation evaluation, what is an impact evaluation. There was a lot of technical assistance provided, but then they had a whole section to talk about the pros and cons of doing a randomized controlled trial and doing a quasi-experimental design. And even just those words were completely new. So to be able to explain that and talk about the implications of that was really important. And then the sub-grantees actually had discussions amongst themselves about the pros and cons of those two different approaches to evaluation, and finally, you know, said pretty strongly an RCT is not going to be feasible. And so they were part of that decision-making and that design process from the very beginning. And I think that was also very helpful for SPR to get to know the sub-grantees face-to-face and to have this kind of dialogue and this kind of learning go on. So from this evolved some distinct roles of internal and external evaluation. So I'm just going to briefly give you an overview of our distinct roles, and my colleague Hannah Batesh from SPR is on the phone, and if at any point, Hannah, you want to chime in, please do. So in terms of internal evaluation, there's some parts of this role that are really, really straightforward. So, you know, writing an RFP to, you know, find an external evaluator, managing that contract,
setting up review processes and so forth are very straightforward. But more complex has been this process of kind of building learning relationships, especially between the external evaluator and our program staff here at AARP Foundation that have been implementing Back to Work 50+ for a number of years and have been doing a lot of data collection and a lot of performance monitoring, but not necessarily formal evaluation. So even explaining what that is was a big task. So it's kind of been more like building a bridge, acting as a translator, sort of a facilitator, an advisor, sometimes a gatekeeper, sometimes a stakeholder, often basically being a cheerleader and just trying to, just being really excited about evaluation and trying to demystify it. And what I hear from Hannah is how important it's been to really understand our organizational culture around evaluation and be able to support all efforts to strengthen this culture. And they have really laid the groundwork for us being able to have a successful evaluation relationship in critical ways. It's been, actively soliciting the perspective of the program, the perspective of, what evaluation means at our organization and where are we in terms of our path there, and just providing an external and very objective perspective that helps me in moving that culture forward, even after the end of, our contract. I feel like that will be going on for a long time through strategic planning and policy work. Hannah, I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to mention there, if you can take yourself off of mute.
Yeah, thanks for asking. I think I'd echo again the importance of being able to weigh in from the outside, and I think it's been very valuable for Jocelyn and I to be able to have conversations about particular concerns or particular questions, and if I can bring them up with the program team, I'm more of a neutral third party. And so if there's a difficult decision that needs to be made or a difficult question that needs to be discussed, I see my role as being the one who can bring it up and therefore move the conversation forward.
That's a great point, because sometimes we'll sort of have a back conversation and we'll decide amongst ourselves kind of our point of view on something, or we'll kind of work out, our different perspectives, and then Hannah will go and sort of present to the program team, a unified front there, which is helpful because having that objectivity, it comes from a different source. It comes from a huge amount of expertise, and I think it gives it a lot of credibility. So next slide. And so now, in terms of, this is a big piece for us right now, is building this learning exchange, because now, for our implementation evaluation is in its second year, and so we've had a couple of rounds of implementation data that have been collected through site visits, as well as some follow-up surveys with job candidates. And so now, being able to share these findings, both, with our organization and with our subgrantees has been really important. And we're just about ready to meet with our community college subgrantees in a couple of weeks to present findings from a 3-month follow-up survey of job candidates, and they're not all great findings, right? I mean, some of them are just either kind of neutral or they're not the most positive in the world, and so just figuring out ways to make that a learning experience and not be able to present these findings in the aggregate without calling out individual subgrantees has been important. But last year when we did this and SPR presented findings, they actually said we would like to get individualized results in a memo to us personally, because we really want to know how we're doing and how close we're sticking to the fidelity of the program model, et cetera. So that was really has been a great experience, and there's been a lot of communication and sort of learning exchange that's been built in. So now we'd like to move on to the discussion. We're at about 3:37, and so we'd like to start this off in a very open-ended way for you just to share your thoughts, your experiences, and your opinions. So thinking about those keys to effective collaboration, which for Kathy and I, this is what we have found.
You may have a different experience. You may have other keys to effective collaboration or maybe challenges that you would like to talk through and kind of, share with one another or with us. The floor is open now. When you respond, though, please give your name again, the organization you're from, and what your evaluation role is on the SIF grant.
Hi, this is Emily Apple from the Mayor's Fund to Advance New York and the Center for Economic Opportunity. We received grants in 2010 and 2015 from SIF. And one thing I just want to echo that you presented about is the importance of not collecting data that first year or minimizing data collection in the first year of program implementation. We're certainly doing this with our second grant now from our lessons learned in the first grant, where we heard from subgrantees even 5 years into the project, they're like, you should have waited to collect data and really focused most of that first year on technical assistance. So we've taken that lesson to heart and tried to implement that as much as possible in our new grant. And I'm really glad to hear that other grantees are learning this lesson as well, and I just want to emphasize the importance of that, now hearing from 2 different cohorts of subgrantees that all agree that it's really important to spend a lot of time getting ready for evaluation and looking at data collection systems and being able to align the organization processes to be best suited for evaluation in that first year.
Emily, this is Kathy. I really appreciate that comment because we thought through the design a lot with the Experience Core, with the SIF evaluation. We have 6 brand new sites, and we realized that really the key to our impact evaluation down the road is that they really get on board and start implementing with fidelity. So we're really gearing everything we have around teaching about evaluation, but really helping them, giving them all the assistance so that they're implementing our program model with fidelity this first year and really focusing there. Who else?
We have another really, really interesting question that's a lot more focused, but this is the most open-ended piece, and you also may have some questions for us, and so that the floor is also open for that. If we don't hear from anyone in the next 30 seconds, we'll move to our next discussion question.
This is Michelle Brodesky from Methodist Healthcare Ministries. We're a 2014 SIF grantee, and Health Resources in Action is our external evaluator. I think one of the keys for us is a little different. Our evaluation is a multi-step, so all 8 of our grantees are doing their own model and have designed their own independent evaluation. Some are RCTs, some are QEDs. And I think one of the keys for collaboration sort of between us and the external evaluator and between the external evaluator and the subgrantees themselves has been multiple strategies for learning and communication. So many of the subgrantees have a weekly call with their external evaluation partner, who is our partner, but with their contact on that team. As well as quarterly in-person, we call them evaluation learning collaboratives, where all the subgrantees and all of our evaluators get together to work through sort of a stage, whatever stage they're at in the evaluation.
But that's really interesting. So is it one evaluation firm that has several evaluators working with the subgrantees, or is it multiple firms?
That's right. We as Methodist Healthcare Ministries contracted with Health Resources in Action directly to do the entire SIF evaluation, which is actually 9 steps. We have 8 subgrantees, and then we have sort of a portfolio level evaluation. And so they're responsible for all of that. 3 of them are on the line. So we have teams of evaluators from HRIA that work with several subgrantees each.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
A lot to manage, I imagine.
It is. They'll agree,
Hi.
I think.
This is Ty Partridge from Detroit with United Way of Southeast Michigan. We have a UNICEP for this 2016 SIF, but we had a 2011 SIF that was also a multi-SEP, and we had 11 subgrantees, and each one had their own independent evaluator. So the evaluators were actually from different sources. And we found it was really important to have, at this point, their monthly call-ins with all the evaluators, and then there are checks in between to really create that support network of sharing experiences and lessons learned. And there's been a lot of crosstalk about, you know, one program was struggling with something, but another program had figured out how to get around that or had a solution for that, and sharing ideas about IRBs and those sorts of things has been really, really useful. So I think with the multi-SEPs, that's been a huge lesson learned for us.
Thank you. That's really helpful. The key of communication is resonates across all of this. So that's very helpful. This is Kathy again. I know when we went after our SIF, just from the learnings of all the previous cohorts, I really received the advice of, if at all possible, do not do a multi-SEP, do a uni-SEP. Of course, it needs to make sense for your program, and a uni-SEP made sense for our program. And I must say, I was just so grateful for that.
Yeah, I was wondering, just in response to Ty, if there were are there any challenges in getting folks to make the time to engage in this sort of cross-learning type of activities? I mean, it's really important, but it also takes time, and it takes time away from projects and so forth, and I'm wondering if others have thoughts about that, like just to engage in a learning exchange or a learning community, how that has been for people.
Well, I think this is Ty again. Initially, there was a lot of lessons learned with, again, and someone had talked about this a little bit earlier, making sure that you build in a planning year in that first year and don't collect any data. Programs wanted to jump right in and start programming, and so we were pushing the data collection early. And so there was a lot of technical support, a lot of back and forth with the evaluators, and I think we framed it from the beginning that this was a required part of participation, was this regular monthly call-in. And I think setting it up that way where people, and we also have each of the evaluators present, we kind of go round robin style, I guess, and they get to present and really on a topic that's of importance to them. Created really more of a learning environment where they're sharing their own experiences, and the evaluators very quickly found it to be an extremely useful tool. So I think, you know, setting it up as a non-optional thing initially, but facilitating a lot of communication and really giving all of the external evaluators an active role in shaping the content and how it worked made it more useful to them.
Yeah, sounds good.
This is Casey from Red F, and I'd like to offer a bit of a more structured perspective. For our second SIF grant in 2016, we brought on OTI International, and in their proposal they suggested that we create an evaluation learning committee. And this is a group that is made mostly of people and leaders and evaluation staff at each of the social enterprises that we're funding. Not each. It's about 24 representatives. And within that 24 is about half and half program staff and then evaluation staff. But also it includes 3 beneficiaries who went through the program themselves and are now brought on as full-time staff who are in participant-facing roles. And we had our first Evaluation Learning Committee meeting just back in December, and not everyone could make it. We had the first one in person, and it was a 4-hour meeting, but we went through a lot of group building exercises and ground rule setting, and just trying to figure out how everyone in the room wants to use this Evaluation Learning Committee to be most effective. And we also importantly addressed how we want to include people who are not on the committee, because not all of our grantees were represented on that committee. It was really heavily weighted towards those groups that are going to participate in our randomized control trial portion of our impact study. But not everyone was on that committee, so we had a nice conversation about, do we want to share and be as transparent as possible our agendas and as well as our findings, and also delineate which decisions about the evaluation would be open to the committee, but also to which we would need to go back to this group, to the larger group, to make those decisions. And the group's not in a decision-making body per se, it's more of an advisory one, but we talk about interpreting findings, talk about specific parts of the evaluation design that we would need input from people, and then hopefully use that to integrate into our SIF evaluation plan, and then and beyond, talking about how our evaluation processes are doing for all of the groups. So hopefully it's an iterative process that will improve our evaluation for the long term.
I really appreciate, this is Jocelyn, I really appreciate you sharing that, and especially the fact that you have the combination of program and evaluation staff as well as beneficiaries. I think that's fantastic. Really, really nice to hear that, and I'm already thinking about how could we do something similar.
Yeah, and a big consideration was how often should we meet, and we're hoping to meet every quarter, but for the first one, we did in person, and then the rest will be over the phone, and just be 1.5 hours.
Great,
hopefully
thank you.
That'll reduce the burden.
In the interest of time, we're just going to move on to our next question. It looks like we have about 10 minutes.
Yeah, we have 10 or 15 minutes, and here's a more specific question. How can evaluators collaborate and maintain independence, especially when working on an impact evaluation?
We'd like to hear from external evaluators too, so please speak up.
Hi, this is Jen Laird from RTI. I think a slide shown earlier about sort of the timing of the work, and that there's intense TA in the first year or two, and then when the impact evaluation or a deep implementation study is launched, that's when the evaluator really needs to stick to being an external evaluator. And one example I can think of, the relationship where we have with REDF, is that we're supporting ongoing monthly monitoring of data that represents people employed counts, but our data that the sub-grantees are submitting each month. And there's a lot of work happening, certainly at the beginning, with refining the reporting templates that we were using with the social enterprises, the grantees, as well as data quality cleanup. And during this stage, we are comfortable with REDF being a part of that, particularly around the data cleanup stage. Initially, we were taking all queries and finding issues and working with the social enterprise to clean up their data, but it was consuming too much of our resources. So we agreed with Casey that he would also be involved with supporting the social enterprises in cleaning their data, and we're comfortable with that during this monitoring phase. When it comes to the formal evaluation stage, we won't be comfortable, and he won't be comfortable in the role of helping the SEs to clean their data. That will shift back to us because it'll be important that we that he doesn't have access to the sort of individual level data.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I think there's a key between the initial kind of implementation startup years and the rigorous evaluation, the impact evaluation year, from what you said, from what I said, from what Jocelyn said as well. Anyone else? An interesting question, this is Kathy again, came up when we were preparing for this presentation, and I'd be curious to throw it out to the folks on the phone. What happens when in the impact evaluation portion, or even in the implementation evaluation portion of the evaluation, there's some analysis or findings from the evaluators that really the internal staff and the evaluation staff they kind of disagree about how it was done. What do you do with that?
Or how to interpret it?
Or how do you, yeah. It's a tricky question, and it's something that we have not run into yet, but I'm sure at some point we'll run into this, and so that's why I'm throwing it out there. And even JBS, if you're on the phone, if you have any thoughts on this question, that would be wonderful.
Hi, this is Nicole. Can you run the question by me one more time, because I'm not quite sure I got it, but I'll...
Yeah. What happens when internal evaluation staff, so internal project managers or evaluators, and the external evaluator, there's analysis done or findings where there's disagreement around what it means or what it says? Where do folks go from there?
So I know one of the things that we've done, and that I know Peter would say if he were on the phone today, would be to actually talk about reporting the information both ways. Say we did an analysis this way, and here's what it showed, and we did an analysis that way, and here's what it showed, and here are where the key differences are between those two, and here are the trade-offs. So that's one thing that we've looked at doing in situations where we've been the external evaluator. I have not, because of where we sit in the evaluation process, I have not been always purview to what the difference between the internal and the external evaluator is. Usually by the time it gets to us, it's the full report. And so they've mediated that somehow in the SIF process, but I know what we've done on evaluations we've worked on.
And Nicole, that was really helpful, just presenting the different analyses and how they were done. That's something helpful that I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah. This is Beth from CNCS, and I think one thing when you have that kind of difference of opinion is you want to differentiate between when things are accurate versus when things are maybe not popular. And that will be an important part of the discussion, is whether or not if program staff feel that something is being reported or measured inaccurately or presents inaccurate facts about the program, that's a completely different thing than being we know our program likes it and it's not showing the results that we want. So I think it's helpful to be more open about that in your relationship. And then if it's something about program accuracy, and then that's something that should be taken into consideration, what the program staff want. And then if it's not just being thrilled by the results, then I think it's kind of what Nicole said, is you can run alternate analysis, you can frame it as a way of an aspect for an area of improvement, there's a way to keep the data intact and still frame it to your funders in a way where it doesn't have to come off as a bad, like, marketing impact on your program.
Yeah. And Beth, this is Nicole again. One of the interesting things that I have seen is that often by the time those sorts of questions get to us, what it's turned into is the program itself going, no, we really want to take this more conservative interpretation of the results. So often I'll see the program saying, no, you know, I'd actually rather say that this doesn't provide the targeted level of evidence that we have, because we know that we did make changes to the program during the process, and perhaps we weren't testing the best available model of the program when we started with our evaluation.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, I think that's why that open communication component is so critical.
Absolutely. We're coming up on the end here, so I'm going to move quickly to this last slide. Both Jocelyn and I are really delighted that we had this conversation with you today, and I think it could have gone even longer, but thank you for your time and your valuable insights. And if any of you would like to reach out to us to find out more about our SIF programs and what we're doing, we're happy to talk with anyone. We are both evaluators and love to talk about this stuff and mull things over. So please feel free to reach out if you would like. And with that, I think I'll turn it back over to you all.
Yep, great. Thank you guys so much. This is Kimberly. I'll just wrap up real quick. Thank you guys, both Kathy and Jocelyn, for the presentation, and everyone on the call for joining in the conversation. We've had 2 evaluation work group calls that have had really robust conversations, so it makes me very happy to hear that. So just so you all know, the next call is scheduled for March 9th at 3 p.m. And just to give you a little teaser, I think we're going to try to do something around implementation science, so stay tuned. But otherwise, thank you all for your time, and we hope you all have a wonderful afternoon.